What do you make of Netanyahu coming to address Congress? Would you go to that?
It's a terrible idea. No, I won't go. Look, you have a prime minister who has created the worst humanitarian disaster in modern history.
Senator Bernie Sanders explains why he's rejecting an invitation to hear Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu address a joint session of Congress. He's not the only one who thinks it's a bad idea. Let's watch.
Israel, of course, had the right to defend itself against the Hamas terrorist attack. But what Netanyahu has done is gone to war against, all-out war, against the entire Palestinian people, women and children. 5% of the population is now dead or wounded. 60% of them are women and children. Some 200,000 housing units have been completely destroyed. Every university in Gaza has been bombed. There is now imminent starvation taking place. So why you would invite somebody who has done such horrific things to the Palestinian people is something that I think is a very bad idea.
Bernie is undeniably correct, especially when you consider the fact that the International Criminal Court is now considering arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu. And so the event itself is something worth discussing. The invitation for Benjamin Netanyahu to address a joint session of Congress. Now, among the lawmakers who think that Bibi speaking to Congress is a bad idea is the House Intelligence Committee ranking member Jim Himes, who's a Democrat from Connecticut. He said that Netanyahu should be focused on freeing hostages, not charming legislators. Representative Dan Kildee from Michigan, a member of the Democratic leadership, also said that, I don't think it's a good time. Let's not complicate an already complicated situation. And guys, believe it or not, even former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is against this idea. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said of the idea simply, no. But some Democrats are urging Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to not even sign on to the invitation idea. And here's where we run into some issues, because while it should be relatively easy for Schumer to reject this idea and not sign on to it, he appears to be open to it. So I want to just remind you of what Schumer said on the Senate floor in regard to Benjamin Netanyahu very recently. Let's watch.
The fourth major obstacle to peace is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has all too frequently bowed to the demands of extremists like Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and the settlers in the West Bank. At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
So there you have Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer making abundantly clear that he sees Netanyahu as a detriment to Israel and a detriment to peace, and he called for new elections. But when it comes to inviting Netanyahu to the United States to address members of Congress in a joint session, apparently he's open-minded to it. The person who came up with this idea, by the way, is Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, who said of Chuck Schumer, our staffs have communicated and it seems as though he wants to sign on. Schumer told reporters yesterday on Wednesday that he's discussing that now with the Speaker of the House. And as I've always said, our relationship with Israel is ironclad and transcends any one prime minister or president. Yeah, but you're inviting the guy that you want to step down to come speak to a joint session of Congress for what? What is the purpose of that? I think we know what the purpose is. I'll let you jump in and explain, Cenk.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
The purpose is money. They are all getting paid by AIPAC. Schumer's in the top 10 recipients of AIPAC money. Biden's #1 recipient, #1 donor to Mike Johnson on the Republican side, who did the original invite. AIPAC. That is 100% the reason why they're doing this. Both, to be honest, both the Jewish and the Muslim vote are tiny in the country. The Muslim vote is a little bit relevant in Michigan. But so that's not the driving issue. The youth vote is a driving issue, which I'll get to in a second. But otherwise, all they want is the money. That's the only thing that anybody focuses on. And that's why we love Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders doesn't care about the money. He doesn't take AIPAC money. And by the way, Bernie Sanders not only is Jewish, he lived in Israel for a while. So this idea that you're against Israel if you say maybe we shouldn't annihilate all the Palestinians in Gaza is absurd. It's totally absurd. And in fact, if you were a true friend to Israel, you would try to get them to turn around instead of going down this dark and destructive path, not just for the Palestinians, but for themselves. That's why Bernie is on that side. But the Schumers of the world care less. Where's the money? Where's the money? Okay, but and again, don't take it out just on Schumer. Schumer's at least on the fence, right? The Elise Stefaniks, the Mike Johnsons are the worst of the worst. And look, credit to Pelosi, a thing that I almost never say, but she's on the right side of this. So why are some of the corporate Democrats that normally support Israel 200%, no matter what they do, all of a sudden a little skittish about inviting Netanyahu? Because they've seen the poll numbers. And they're like, oh, AIPAC money, poll numbers, AIPAC. Well, if you don't have the poll numbers, at least the congressional representatives are beginning to understand you might lose. And the point of the money was to win. So if you lose, that was kind of dumb on your part. And so what's the one thing they care about? Less than the Jewish vote, less than the Arab and Muslim vote, it's the youth vote. And the youth vote is gone. If you go out there and you kiss Netanyahu's ass, almost every young person in America knows Netanyahu is one of the worst war criminals of our lifetime. And they didn't grow up on your mainstream media propaganda telling them that Israel is the most moral army and nonsense, ludicrous talking points like that. So they see, a guy who's butchered 24,000 women and children. And if you go out there and give him a standing ovation, they'll probably hate you forever.
Exactly.
And they should.
Exactly. And to your point, Cenk, Democrats in Congress are willing to go against Benjamin Netanyahu for their own political purposes, for their political advantage. So a perfect example of that is what happened back in 2015 following the nuclear deal that Obama was able to broker with Iran to ensure that they're not developing nuclear weapons. There were other European countries involved in that agreement, but nonetheless, it infuriated Benjamin Netanyahu. He did not want the United States to agree to a nuclear deal with Iran, even though it was preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. He should have co-signed and been in favor of that. But everything we've seen from Netanyahu has kind of tried to drive the United States into a hot war with Iran, which of course would be disastrous. Now, with that in mind, Netanyahu in 2015 came to the United States to speak before Congress and speak out against that nuclear deal with Iran, and every Democrat refused to go watch him speak. They didn't go to his speech except for one, and that one Democrat at the time was Tulsi Gabbard. And so after that, the 2016 election happens. There's obviously hostility toward Tulsi Gabbard because of the fact that she was willing to go support Netanyahu and watch him speak. And that was really the reason why she stepped down from the DNC. It really didn't have anything to do with how dismayed she was over how Bernie Sanders was treated by the Democratic establishment at the time. But nonetheless, my point in bringing up that situation is the fact that if they see that supporting Netanyahu is not politically advantageous, then they won't go see him speak. They won't support what he's doing. And so I think that's really what's informing the decisions being made and the statements being made by the likes of Nancy Pelosi. However, there are some Democrats who think, no, this should be a bipartisan event and Democrats should totally go. One of those individuals is Democratic Florida Representative Jared Moskowitz, who says the following: even though we might have policy disagreements with Netanyahu, as we do with some of our NATO allies, I think he should get with the speaker and make it bipartisan, meaning make the attendance of his speech bipartisan. Again, let me just reiterate, a little problematic to go watch and support a speech given by an individual who might be facing an ICC arrest warrant soon due to the war crimes that have been committed in the Gaza Strip. So, any final words on this, Cenk?
Yeah, I want to give two members on tyt.com/team shout outs here because make good points. Ouch my nards, I know it's funny every time, but on this serious issue says whoever's denouncing Netanyahu right now is going to win the presidency in 2028. This will be the you voted for the Iraq war gotcha issue of the future. So I think that if you support like Elise Stefanik's McCarthyite hearings, and you invite and then give a standing ovation to the most obvious war criminal of our lifetime, yeah, I think there's some chance it's going to come and catch up with you, not just from the left, but also from the right. And so with allies like Israel, who needs enemies? And I think that if you know, when Moskowitz says, oh, sometimes we have disagreements with allies, but we invite them anyway. Yeah, I don't remember France or Netherlands killing 24,000 women and children and us cheerleading it and paying for it. This is not a slight disagreement with an ally. This is our so-called ally committing some of the worst war crimes of our lifetime. But Moskowitz doesn't see it that way because Moskowitz doesn't think Palestinian lives are worth anything.
Well, does he think that American lives matter? Because currently there are around 20 American doctors trapped in Gaza. They're unable to leave because Israel has taken control of the Rafah border crossing. And so when Ryan Grimm asked the State Department during a press conference last week what the United States is gonna do about this, you want to know what the answer was, Jake? It's complicated. It's complicated. It's apparently complicated to get the ally of the United States, Israel, to free American doctors who are currently trapped in Gaza, which, by the way, is being bombarded with bombs that have been supplied by the United States government. Like, how absurd is that? So does Moskowitz care about Americans? If he doesn't, I mean, it doesn't shock me at this point that we have, unfortunately, members of Congress who don't see Palestinian civilian lives as human lives. I find it disgusting and deplorable. But does he care about American lives?
No.
No, they don't.
Representative Moskowitz, like there isn't anything Israel could do that he wouldn't agree to. And so he can't wait to give a standing ovation to Netanyahu, who's butchered at least 24,000 women and children, innocent, all of them innocent. There's 35,000 dead overall, 77,000 injured, 10,000 more buried in the rubble, 1 million starving, and let alone the American doctors. But Representative Moskowitz, who thinks, who cares? Who cares? The beloved Israel is way more important than American doctors, Palestinian lives, which he couldn't care less about. Look, the people who are supporting Israel's annihilation of Gaza, they're going to have to carry that mark of shame for the rest of their lives. To say, yeah, I was in favor of butchering 24,000 women and children, burning them alive, dropping 2,000-pound bombs on them, let alone the destruction of all of Gaza, including every college. And now, story just broke that Israeli soldiers are burning books in Gaza while celebrating in front of the burning books. Like, haha, you won't get an education. We won't let you have a state. We killed your family members. We annihilated 70% of the buildings in Gaza. Now we're burning the books and the education. So the people who supported these IDF terrorists will carry that around the rest of their lives. Like, I hope you're proud. I hope you're proud of the death and destruction that you supported and funded. Anyone who stands up for Netanyahu will carry that for the rest of their lives as one of the worst, most disgusting things you could do. And finally, another member, and I know these funny handles are all funny, and normally there's funny times. This is a sad and tragic time, but Commie Poison Blood Vermin writes in with a lot of good things and says, Bernie gives me hope for humanity,
yes.
Of course.
Yep.
And that's exactly right, because there is one honest man in Congress, at least, right? And when Bernie Sanders gets out there and stops the gaslighting and says, what are we doing? These Palestinians, of course, they're human beings just like everybody else. We can't just go wantonly kill their women and children and then applaud the guy who did it. Thank you, Bernie Sanders. Thank you, Jamie Raskin, Ro Khanna, all the, and yes, definitely Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Ilhan Omar, all of the brave people in this Congress, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, that all stood up for innocent lives, whether they're Israeli or Palestinian. For the people who said, no, I only care about one set of lives and not the others. well, you'll have that on your conscience for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, the moral clarity demonstrated by Bernie Sanders on this issue is admirable and, fairly rare in our Congress, because he had no problem condemning the atrocities committed by Hamas, and they absolutely should be condemned, while also acknowledging that, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, but it doesn't have the right to annihilate Palestinians in the Gaza Strip who have done nothing wrong. And so I appreciate his voice and the moral clarity that he provides at a time where it feels like there's a lack of morality overall in our government.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.